Welcome to the Sharon Fitzmaurice podcast, where we celebrate the resilience of the human spirit. We're proudly partnered with intothewestadventures.com, so please check out their walking trips abroad and at home in Ireland, and they have availability on their Aaronmore Tory Walking Weekend, the 27th to the 30th of June, and also on their Scottish trip, the 16th to the 20th of October. Check out intothewestadventures.com. And now to our next guest. So, I'd like to welcome my guest, Alison Kelly, holistic career coach and professional development trainer. Alison helps people build meaningful careers that align with their values and aspirations. She was born and raised in Dublin, Ireland, but she now lives in, you'd have to pronounce this properly for me, Annapolis, Maryland, USA. Is that correct, Alison?
Annapolis, you're good.
Annapolis.
Yeah.
So you're making an impact as a career strategist, trainer, and social advocate. And Alison, I connected with you on LinkedIn, and we were talking about it before we press record, and how being virtual has its disadvantages, but I have found so many advantages to the amazing people that I've built relationships with online. And Alison Kelly, you are one of them.
The feeling is mutual, Sharon. It definitely is. I think we first met, we were both participants in Social Media Fest, and we were both doing it virtual. I was up at 4 in the morning with the time difference, well worth the investment. And you and I were some of the people given that positive impact. And there was different positive feedback and stuff. And there was different times where I was going, oh, I like her. I like the way you were approaching stuff. And then we both connected on LinkedIn. I don't know who said it first, but we both knew we were the same like-minded people. So it's been a pleasure getting to know you virtually, and hopefully someday soon we'll be together.
Oh, absolutely. And again, I think the importance is, because so many people have this negative idea of social media. But one of the things that we were talking about is, again, if you're willing to get to know the people online that you want to connect with, that you will build relationships. And again, we don't know where those connections are going to take us, or that we can recommend them to other people as well, because it's the same thing as if we were out in the pub in Dublin, Alison, and you were telling me
Yeah.
all about your life and business, and that I might say, oh, well, I'm not going to use Alison right now, but I know somebody that would actually benefit from your services, and you share that information. It's the very same thing.
It is in some ways, because I do a lot of career coaching, as you know. And a lot of ways I tell people on social media they've got to brand themselves, show themselves what they really are. Because you never know. Most of our friends and family don't know what we do for a living. They just, I mean, my mother knows I got a degree in something, but do you remember that old ad where the granny used to put the candles on for the person graduating? She goes, what did they get? They got an ology in what? I don't know, but it's an ology. After the granny, lighting the candles for all the exams and everything. And so how could the granny sell you? You know what I mean? Because she doesn't know, what it is, what job you're looking for when you're graduating from college. So social media has that great advantage of you can share parts of yourself or your business or just what you like to do. And people get a kind of feel for it. I love on my personal Facebook page, I think my family's got to know that I absolutely adore afternoon teas. They knew I did. When I went home, I'd always arrange one, but then they'll see the different afternoon teas I'm having here and go, no, she's really into the afternoon teas, or the fact that I walk every day and I post pictures of where I'm walking. It's just, it gives people a flavor for you. So there's advantages to being online for sure.
Absolutely. So when I connected to you through social media, again, it's nearly like you said, I could tell that you were my kind of person. You were fun loving and positive, and you were a supporter and an encourager, something that I tried to do every day of my life, if possible. And we
Yeah,
must remember to do that for ourselves. And
absolutely.
yes, over that year, we have connected more and more and been great supporters for each other and for others. I see you doing that as well online, and I've got to know more about you. And that's why I just thought I would love to have you on my podcast to share with my listeners. And to my listeners, this is Alison's first podcast.
And I know people are surprised at that because, I'm such an extrovert in a lot of different ways, but I'm actually an introvert in other ways, as we all are. We're all on the spectrum somewhere, I think. I don't like the two categories. But for me, several people have asked me on podcasts, and I wasn't sure that I felt comfortable with it. But watching your podcasts and listening to them and getting to know you, I went, I trust that I'll be safe in your presence, Sharon, and it'll just be a
Ah,
nice chat and good things will happen.
absolutely. And that's what about it's a conversation between friends, and we're sharing with other people that are supporting the stories of resilience and where we are and how we got there, where we're going and our dreams and hopes, as it is the same with every human being around the world. So we go back to you, Alison, in Dublin and raised in Dublin. How was life for you growing up in Dublin?
Ah, it was great. I have three sisters, so we had the stepping stones. But my life kind of started. People wonder why I'm such an optimist. But my life started with the knowing I was a miracle baby. So that's quite a title to hold, right? But my mom had two children, Donna and Sandra, very quickly together. And then there was a 5 year gap. And she had difficulties. She'd lost a baby and had difficulties conceiving. And so I used to hear this story from my aunties and I go, oh, you're your mommy's miracle, and I go, oh, kind of gives you a little pep in your step when you're a little girl. Um, but as I got to know that, and then mom went on to have another girl, my younger sister, Rachel. Um, but the whole thing of just even that, when I look back, I think that kind of, my dad was pretty much an optimist too, that there was kind of this thing in me that just keep people happy, keep people. My dad was a singer and a dancer and not professionally, but he had a joke for every occasion. And that just kind of, I knew that that would change the mood in a room, and that's what I emanated to. And I joined singing and dancing groups and all that kind of thing throughout my life. So all of that comes to mind with what I do now. It's starting as a little girl, just wanting to make people happy and see people, be happy and stuff, and having that little thing of, my mom. When I look back at the story as a teenager, getting to know her more as a woman as opposed to just your mother, when you're going out into the world yourself, she had told me that, they'd prayed for me. She always said we'd prayed and we lit candles and we did this. And your nanny and me, we go to that particular church every day and we'd be praying. She said, but then she says, I went, if it wasn't for the professor. And she had this doctor she had searched out who, mum being Catholic, he was Protestant. So can you imagine now? She was going to a Protestant professor, Brow, to find out why she wasn't having a baby. And he gave her an operation called a Gillian suspension. Now, this is the detail. And mom conceived. So I looked at that as a story of absolutely pray, do everything, but then, oh, knock down doors. Don't just wait your faith, knock down the doors and do everything in your control to make something happen.
Oh my God, I love that story. Absolutely. So obviously coming from your mom and dad, then having that vitality for life and that curiosity, but also making things happen. So you learned a lot, that was the foundation for your childhood. Where were you as a teenager? Did you have aspirations and dreams for yourself and what your life would look like?
Oh, indeed. From doing the singing and dancing gave me, because I actually was a very, very shy little girl, believe it or not. And the singing and dancing that I joined on my own and went off and did, I used to be so nervous getting on stage with groups and stuff, but it always then gave me extra confidence in life after it. So I absolutely loved it. And when I was a teenager, I'd seen a group called Up With People, which was to me, they were like Fame, if you remember Fame back in the
Yeah.
day. And they were an international singing and dancing group. And as a teenager, I had 15 pen pals at the age of 14 from all over the world. So I was like, social media was designed for me. I just love different cultures and different things. So when I went to see the show, one of our teachers brought us to it, and it was just it captivated me. And they auditioned people from all around the world to join it. So I auditioned. Not they didn't audition so much; it was more of an interview. It was more your personality type that went for it. And I got accepted to be with Upper People. I didn't go in the end. That's it. That's a whole other story. But I made the decision not to go because I was madly in love. You know the way you do when you're thinking
Yeah.
it can't be a year without the one
Yeah.
you love when you're like 18 and 19 years of age. But anyway, so I didn't go away with Up With People. But I joked about it because I've gone to see them in concert over here and stuff since, and I've been involved with them on the outside. I was a youth leader at the time. I was singing in the folk group at church. I was that kind of a person that loved to be engaged with people. And years later, when I went to see up with people and what they were doing, they would all represent their different countries and everything. I went, oh, this is what I do for a living. I get up and I entertain people. And there's all kinds of cultures in the room living in America. And I'm meeting my friends. When I have a party in my house, it's like the United Nations. You know, I've a collection of friends from all walks of life and all kinds of cultures. And I'm going, I'm living the upper people life. You know what I mean? So that's what it is. It's just, I've always been enthused about learning people's culture and learning people who are different than me and what we can share with each other and that kind of stuff. So that's what kind of brought me into the teenage years. And then I was reading your book. I'm going to give you a plug for the book. I was reading your book over the weekend before we're going to meet. I was amazed that, how small the world is, because I'd seen you post that on LinkedIn and I went, get that over here. It's here the next day, Sharon, when I ordered it. I mean, boom, boom.
Wow.
I ordered on a Friday and it came on the Saturday. So that's how international we all are
Wow.
now, right? Um, so got the book and I was reading it, but the similarities that I saw with you of, when you're timid yourself, you can fight for other people. When you have a passion for people and a passion for when you've been to some kind of challenges yourself, you kind of go, I'm going to stand up for them. I can't stand up for myself, but I'll stand up for them. Well, that brought me on a picket line in Dunnes Stores, Cornell's Court, on strike. The part-timers and the part-timers in my shift were like, you're our representative, whatever. I wasn't even there when they had a vote and going, okay, I'm a union shop steward at 16, we'll do it. And I remember we're out in the picket line and I've always won for observing and always kind of seen, what is this impact? And I watched that while we were out in the picket line, there wasn't people going into the shop because Irish are fantastic for supporting strikes. We're the best in the world. When I bring anybody home to Ireland, and I've brought tours of Americans home to Ireland, and I go, there will be a strike. I don't know where it'll be. But there will be a strike. And let me just tell you, we will not be passing the picket line, And it's like, so I laugh at that. But I was observing this and, the union folks and, we're there with our picket lines and I'm only 16 years of age. And so I was told I'd have to bring the part-timers in to collect our wages. And I look back at this and it was a defining moment and I didn't know it, right? So I'm really nervous. And there was a very intimidating, I won't name names, there was a very intimidating manager. And he put it as we to walk up the steps of the cash office back in the day when we were all paid in cash. And he put his arm across the stairwell to stop me. And he said, you do know you're out on strike to put yourself out of a job, because the union was fighting for better pay for the part-timers, but they were really also fighting for Dunnes to stop hiring part-time school folks and give full-time jobs to people who needed it, and I knew that at the time. I don't think a lot of part-timers did, but I was really asking questions. So he put his hand across it and he said, you're out there. So I was quoting to him what it was and whatever. And he's, and I said, I don't intend on leaving my job, because he said, if you leave your job, which a lot of us did seasonally and came back, he said, you won't have a job to come back to. And I said, well, I don't intend on leaving my job until I don't need this job anymore. But does this look like the face that's going to be just doing cashier, Mr. Devereux? I said his name. But anyway, I said, and I walked up, I was shaking. I mean, I'm still shaking now, even thinking of the story. And I went up and got my wages. And then I came back down, he says, Miss Kelly, you will go far in life. And it
Now.
was like, you walk away and you go, at the time, my ambitions in that job were to get onto the microphone. When they did the Dunnes Stores, better value beats them all every day. I can still do it all these years later. Fantastic. And I remember because my older sister Sandra had been the customer service person. I used to love hearing her voice when there's a 5-year gap between us, she was my hero up there on the customer service. So I did get on the mic, plenty of fun with the mic. Oh, I remember I have to tell you a funny story. I'm a storyteller in case you haven't realized that already. But I remember one Christmas, they after Christmas, you'd have to announce all the Coral Court was different departments. So they had the toy story, the toy department. And so I'm listing all the toys that are for sale, you know. So, oh, Barbies are now selling at only 1.99. Barbies now selling. It's bringing you back, Sharon, isn't it? You might have been in the store when I was saying it. So, so I'm going through this whole list. And so going Barbies, Action Man, Pull Along Chickens, now selling at only 2.99. And I'm announcing this Pull Along Chickens. Well, about 10 minutes later, the delicatessen manager calls me up and goes, if you stop announcing those chickens, they're all coming down here looking for chickens in the deli for 2.99.
Oh my God, that is brilliant.
So I knew then, you know what I mean? That there's humor in everything you could do. You can lighten people up. You just put your full into everything and just, because there were people who were doing the announcements that didn't put that energy in, didn't, try to make it sound as professional as whatever. Sure, I was in my element. I had a microphone at work. I was grand.
Oh, well, absolutely. You definitely are a storyteller, but you can hear also the fun and the
Yeah.
creativity that comes alive as well, when you're doing something, put a bit of you into it. Don't
Oh,
be the same as
absolutely.
everybody else. Put a bit of you into it because you will be remembered. And that's one
Mhm.
of the things I always say to people. You can do the same job as everybody else, but nobody can do it like you. They can't be you,
Exactly.
and they'll remember you and your personality. So you doing your done stores and out on strike and supporting others, where did it lead you on in your life then, Alison?
So it led me that passion of, wanting to make people happy, that passion about worrying about people, like standing up for people. It led kind of it was a path, but it led me into human resources, personnel management back in the day. Because then I could see, well, look at there's sense in what management have to make money because I saw on the strike, people were going down to our competition to grocery shop and some of them never came back. You know what I mean? So I had a real business sense of me and I don't know where I got that from. A childhood friend sent me when I was turning one of the roundy birthdays. You know how it is. We don't name numbers at this age, right, Sharon? They're all roundy birthdays. But one of my roundy birthdays, she sent me a thing she had saved up. And when I was only like 9 years of age, I'd sent her a memo that we were having a meeting out in the back garden and she was to bring this, that, and the other and snacks. There was always snacks involved, she'd bring food. And when I saw that like 30 years later and I'm looking at it and I'm going, oh my goodness, that's how I do my training. You're bringing this, you're bringing that, and we're feeding the people because when you feed them, they're all happy. So anyway, it led in my career, it led to I was personnel manager. I started as the receptionist in a factory in Bray. It wasn't my first job out of school, but I started as a receptionist. And the owner, Jerry Case, who's just an amazing, still is the boss of my lifetime. I've learned, sometimes I'm teaching in front of hundreds of people here, and I'm quoting something he said. He was an incredible person who saw potential in people. And so he saw here was this, young kid from a council estate who hadn't gone to college, who didn't have the opportunity to go to college, and he saw what I was capable of. So he promoted me and sponsored me through college. And it was life changing and just, it was an incredible factory to work in. It was incredible. The lessons, I still teach some of the lessons, as I said, some of the characters. Just learned so much in that role. And that brought me to have all this experience that when I came to teach and host and facilitate training, I had so many real life experience myself and not just the academic person teaching, from the book, right?
Mm. I love it. Something that's really important to me is the lived experience. And you can always
Absolutely.
tell, can't you, Alison, when somebody, and it's not saying that people that go to college and, they walk into their business or into a company that they don't have experience, but the lived experience really adds value and there's an authentic integrity about it because we've had to come up through the
Hard knocks.
lines, the hard knocks, that's it. And we've learned through the experience of
Absolutely.
who we want to continue being and the parts of us we have to grow and develop within ourselves. Like you talking about Jerry Casey, a boss that recognized and could see the potential in you.
Hmm.
That like you, I've had some of those as well. And they could see things in me. They could see the potential in me before I could see it myself. And maybe I didn't
Absolutely.
believe it. But again, you remember every one of those experiences and the people's names, don't you? You remember.
Absolutely.
It's so
Oh,
invaluable, isn't it?
it is. And you realize that if these people had that impact on me, how can I have that impact on others? And Jerry was amazing because he empowered me in that role um to do the same for others. And I had people we were saying before we started here, like Facebook was the start of social media for me, and it opened up so many personal experiences and work experiences and everything else of just people getting to know you online as to your authentic self. Once you're your authentic self online, it really shows through. And so many of the opportunities that he gave me, I had somebody reach out to me years later when I started. Somebody started a reconnection group for that factory because it had closed down, and we were all online, and somebody reached out there and saying, I can't thank you for the opportunity. You made me stay in school and finish my leaving cert. And I did it in such a way that, and Jerry had empowered me to do those kind of things, that the individual was studying for his leaving cert while he was supposed to be on shift on the print floor. It was kind of like I was doing everything to kind of, no, you're not. I'll give you a full-time job when you're done, but you're doing your leaving cert while you're working, and get that so you can continue on forever. And so, like, I was floored all those years later, but it really was Jerry who had empowered me in a position to pay for training, to do things. And I just brought that into every role I had afterwards. It's like recognize potential and help people and encourage them to be their best that they want to be, not forcing people to be something they don't either.
Yeah. Oh, I just think that's wonderful. Because sometimes I always say that we see things in other people they can't see in themselves. And I like to be that cheerleader. I know you said that to me. I do like to be a cheerleader for people, and I like to, even if they're saying it on their post, I like to kind of confirm that I can see it, that I see it
Yeah.
in them, that they have helped me to say thank you and to say it out loud, not just quietly in a message, but to say it out loud and to, tag people online and say all these things because I think it's just to value another person's kindness, to value how they've supported you or encouraged you in some shape or form. And you're definitely doing that through the podcast when you're talking about all that helped you, because I'm
Uh,
sure there's many people that will be tagging you in the future, Alice, and saying how you supported them.
it is. I mean, we're all teachers in life, even if we don't have the role of teacher. We all have the ability to share knowledge that will help somebody else. And I'm always like, if I see something, I go, gosh, that's great. I have to share that with the person who I think can use it. And we all need it too. We all need cheerleaders in our lives.
Absolutely. So tell me about then, we're moving on. First, your move to America, was that through work or was that a personal move that you chose to move to the US of A?
Well, now listen, Sharon, that's a whole podcast in itself. So I'm going to tell you that it started with swimming cows. Is that the best?
Yeah, I love it. I'm intrigued.
But anyway, intrigued. But I'll give you the nice short version of it because people who know me know I never wanted to leave Ireland. I was the type, if I went on holidays to the Canaries, I came back and kissed the ground of Ireland like the Pope did. I miss Ireland every day. But your life, like a wildflower, you're blown and you have to grow where you're planted. But long story short, myself and my son's dad, who is my ex-husband now, was my husband at one point, but we were doing a really cheap vacation holiday. I'm going to go in and out of Americanese. You know how that goes when you live across the pond. Um, and we were having a holiday, and we were down in Kerry, and we were camping, and it was the worst rain in 100 years. So we were trying to stick it out because we had put a deposit on a house in Greystones. We hadn't told anybody. We'd put a deposit down. It was going to be built. And we had put a deposit down our wedding, and we hadn't told a single soul in our family yet. And we were doing this really cheap holiday, the way the August bank holiday. And I literally, the rain was pouring every day. We were trying to pitch up the tent. And then I said, okay, that's it. We have to go to a bed and breakfast, because we're driving and I see cows swimming in the flood. I went, that's it. We have to go. We get into the bed and breakfast, and a really long story short, we met two couples there from Boston. They were Irish Americans, Murphys. We got chatting. We stayed up all night. It was one of those, I knew the minute I met them, they were going to play a significant role in my life, just like I kind of did with you, Sharon. But I felt it, like I felt it in that night. We had a great, we shared, they were having difficulty having children, and they shared all that with us. And we told them, they were the first to know, we're after putting this out of house, we have to do this, whatever. When we left, we tore a dollar bill and a pound note at the time. And we said the next time we meet, we'll put those together. And of course, it was before social media and everything, but I was the pen pal, I was the one. So Linda and myself wrote to each other all the time. Fast forward, economic times weren't great in Ireland at the time, and we won a green card in the lottery. We were one of the Donnelly and Morrison visas. And people say to me, how did you create this? How are you so lucky? I have a keynote speak that I give that's called, You Can Be Lucky If You Pursue Luck. Like, you can't win the lotto if you don't buy a ticket. I'm looking around because I'm sure I have a lotto ticket right next to me. I still buy the lotto ticket, you know what I mean? But if we won a green card because we entered to win the green card, right? And so we came off on an adventure, which I really thought was going to be 5 years, get dual citizenship, and then life took over, right? But you have to bloom where you're planted, and that's what we did. So my son was 2.5 when we left Ireland, and we came on that big adventure. And Tim, one of the couples, Tim is his godfather, was his godfather before we emigrated, had no intentions of emigrating, and not to America. I've loads of family in Canada. So, you never know those chance meetings and how impactful they are. And Kim and Linda, I was only out for lunch with them, a couple of weeks ago.
Wow.
We're still completely involved. They're my family here.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm just smiling because I love it involves swimming cows, and my imagination goes to something completely different. And then you just talk about cows in Ireland, and you can see it. You can see it so clearly. Amazing.
I literally said, I've just seen a cow swim. We've got to go to a bed and breakfast. We are not pitching a tent. And as a result, we had to go home earlier because we didn't have as much money. And, we were wanting to stretch the 2 weeks out on the bit of money, but I was there. I was on a mission. We were buying that house. You're not going to believe the house, though. I do have a story about that real quick. The house, we named it Monrev after a house we'd seen in France that we loved, and it means my dream. And it devastated when we got divorced. We had to sell the house, and it really devastated me. And every year I go back down to the area that it's in. Well, and I definitely won't tell the area here, but I think it's well known anyway. So, long story short, I tell Sam, you know what? The youngest TD in Ireland grew up in your bedroom. So it was Simon Harris's childhood home. His mother went to
Wow.
school with me. That's who bought the house. So it was like years later, because it was brokenhearted about losing the house. But years later, I went, you know what? If I didn't move from that house, that was all part of the circumstances that helped Simon get shaped into Simon who he is. You know what I mean? So it's wild, the connections we all have. It's just wild. And the last time I was home in Ireland, last September, I'm name dropping everywhere, but my dear friend Fionnuala says to me, Alison, I have an event. It's the last night that you're here on this holiday. I'm invited to, but Simon Harris will be there. I said, I have to go. That's
Yeah.
it. Last night or not. And then I said, Simon, you grew up in my son's bedroom.
Oh, wow. Isn't that amazing? And I think,
Yeah.
again, like that in Irish people in particular, anyway, we have so many stories and so many connections.
Yeah.
And I'm sure in America they love you all the more for it as well.
It's the stories, but there's the same amount of wild connections happen here. It's just because it's bigger and there's more people. still the same magic happens when you just let it happen, when you just take the time to talk to somebody in the shop or
Yeah.
to talk to somebody who's in your class or to talk to a colleague and get to know them and hear their stories. The same magic connections. Obviously, we are a smaller island and we are more interrelated and all the rest, but those magic things, it's like the movie A Wonderful Life, when you
Mm.
see the banker who, didn't think he was having an impact. And then all these people said, I believe every single one of us has that impact on each other, or the possibility of having that impact on each other.
Absolutely. I definitely think so. We want to move on because I love this part. You were teaching from personal experience as a human resource professional with a strong background in recruitment and quality management, and through sharing your own journey of several career reinventions, the latest being when the pandemic brought your thriving training business and diverse sources of income to a standstill.
Yeah,
So
it
therein
was
we have a story.
therein we have a story. So it was quite wild. So what and I had diverse. I had rental properties, I had my training business, recruiting, different kinds of things. What happened at the very start of the pandemic, first we were blessed. My son Sam and my daughter-in-law Gerald, they got married on the 22nd of February. And everybody was there and everything was fine. And 2 weeks later, the world shut down. And it was just crazy how quickly everything happened. Within within a week or so, in early March anyway, I woke up, came to one day here on my own in the house, and I was leaned over the arm of my couch, and the phone was ringing. It was my neighbor checking in on me, a senior neighbor that I check in on every day. She hadn't heard from me for a day and a half, so I had COVID, and I didn't know it at the time. I woke up and I was really, really ill, drastically with COVID and whatever. When I look back at the time, I was 36 hours out. I was unconscious for 36 hours. I went to bed. I got up. I was sick and everything. I was throwing up. I was feverish. After talking to my neighbor, she said I made no sense on the phone. But I got up and I went to bed and I, got ready for bed. I woke up again, probably another day later. Everything was stripped on the bed. Myself, everything, sheets, everything. It's amazing how your body will survive, how you will fight when you're on your own and you don't even know it. So I had severe COVID very early on in the whole thing, and I was home alone. Um, and with that, it was like everything was getting postponed initially at the start of the training's now happening next week. It'll happen a couple of weeks from now. The place goes down. And that continued. And within 72 hours of me feeling okay, what I thought was okay, everything was gone. Like my tenants were saying they couldn't pay their rent. All of my gigs for the coming year. I mean, people were canceling things out in September. Everything was getting cancelled. And I was here with no income, and two mortgages, three mortgages to pay, with people not being able to pay them and everything else. And I wasn't feeling great, but I wasn't putting it down to we now know long COVID, right? It wasn't a thing. I just wasn't feeling, I couldn't get my energy together to be fighting the way I normally fight to kind of survive in a business downturn. So anyway, the first thing I said, look, for years I have been teaching classes to unemployed folks and underemployed folks in one of our local agencies, similar to the FOSS. I don't know what it's called now, but um, and I said, okay, you've got to take this in hand and you got to take the steps that you tell everybody to do. So the steps were, you've got to cut your cloth. You've got to not spend money. I was on to everybody before they were doing mortgage, forbearance and all those kind of things. I was on to everybody I knew that I had bills to, saying, I'm not going to be able to pay this bill because I was burning through my savings. So I did that first. And then secondly, I was like, I could see people were starting to train online. I was like, no, because when I'm in the class, I'm working with Legos, I'm walking around the room, I'm bumping into it, I'm singing a song, I'm doing all kinds of I'm watching everybody in the room to make sure if there's somebody who's really quiet that I'm doing their style that suits them, that I'm working around. I said, this can't, I've seen online training in the past. I can't bring this energy. So I attended every free class I could attend online, and while I'm battling to kind of financially try and survive. And and then I'm kind of going, okay, if I'm going to do this, because and no offense to a couple of my colleagues that started it, they didn't make any, they just got online and the camera was going up their nose while they were talking. And, it's like, it's going, oh no, we got to do. And so I started reaching out to a couple of people who I saw who I thought were doing it well, and connections of connections, and through LinkedIn and everything else. And then one connection kind of connected me with another person saying she's doing online training. So I got talking to her and she said, oh, I'm not doing it on my own. I have a virtual producer. She said, let me put you in touch with my virtual producer. So, I've no money at this point, but I'm not doing it unless I'm doing it right. So you got to invest in yourself, though. You got to do it right. You got to have the right kind of thing. So she introduced me to, and it's been phenomenal ever since. So I now know a group of virtual producers who work with me when I present, and they were former stage managers on Broadway. So they were at home going, what am I going to do? And they're going, I better get to know the Zoom. I mean, my first Zoom call was with the folks from my local when the bartender said, we're all missing each other 2 weeks in, let's do a happy hour together, and I'm installing Zoom to go to happy hour, and a month later, I've got virtual producers and we're doing it like I've all the lights. I turned my home office into a studio because I felt for me to put the energy into it, I had to give it all the professionalism that I give it when I'm going into a place to do the training. So I've lights. I even got off Etsy a little sign called Studio and put it on the door, because you've got to envisage what it's going to be, right? And so they're amazing. I have a great group, MK and Ashley and Rachel. They're just phenomenal. So then I'm just presenting. I don't have to worry about, are the PowerPoints coming or the video coming, if whatever. And they read my mind, like you saw Esther do at the social media
Yeah,
fest with Samantha, right? Samantha can't be worrying about the lights and the whatever and
yeah.
the putting the X on the stage where people need to stand because things are so. And that just made all the difference. That made me go, oh, I loved it. And my colleagues couldn't get over. They were like, what? And I go, no, I'm staying online. You don't understand, because I realized the clients that I was working with before, they had a lot of some of them had workshops that were voluntary. People could sign up if they wanted to, and their attendance would often be low. Online, they were through the roof. Like there were so many more people because they could fit it into their day. They didn't have to drive to a place to get
Mm,
there. They didn't have to, the commute, the timing, maybe some of them didn't want to be networking with their colleagues, but they wanted the information because they
mm.
just wanted to get on with things. And so it really became a forum that I absolutely love. And 99% of my business is online now. And it's, and then I got a chance to kind of teach and coach around the world again. And I do a lot of work with Ireland, and it just went, wow. If you were to tell me in the depths of feeling that kind of unwell, because I didn't have the energy to go out. I didn't have the energy to stand for a whole day in front of people, all of that kind of stuff. If you were to tell me then in 2020 that by 2025 you become, I still do a couple of keynotes and the occasional kind of workshop, but in person, but the majority of my work is online now, and I absolutely love it.
That is absolutely powerful. So again, all the way through your life, it was circumstances that led you to
Mhm.
be in a place or a position, and you had to create something of value for yourself and the people you were going to be helping or working with.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what I found each time was, down to my very first job at 14-year-old in a sweet shop, that every single job had given me skills to do what I was doing now. Isn't that always the way, Sharon?
Oh my, I just said that at social media. I said, don't think that anything is ever wasted because everything you've ever done in your life is standing to you in some shape or form
Yeah.
right now in this moment.
Yeah, it's amazing the experience and And, through kind of rebuilding my business online and getting people to know that, oh, Alison's doing this online versus in person, and sticking to my guns, because a lot of, like, I was doing a lot of third party work before the pandemic, and now it's direct work with my clients. But like the colleges, they wanted us back in the classroom when it was unsafe to be. And
Mm.
my experience of COVID, from having long COVID that was really severe, and I still have long COVID. You heard me coughing there a little bit earlier. I still have the remnants 5 years later of long COVID. I lost my very dear friend Kimla to COVID in April of 2021, and I was with her an hour before she passed. And so to me, and in a big country like America, they weren't observing the lockdowns the same way Ireland was. Now, and many people were, but it wasn't, you didn't feel that same safety net that I could see was happening in Ireland. So I was like, I'm not going out into the classroom, so fear was driving me too. And it was like, okay, how do I get around this obstacle and still make a living and still do what I love? But in the interim, I started applying for online jobs because I needed an income. And so here I was, having been a recruiter, having been a trainer, having telling people how to land jobs. And what was I coming across? Ageism and roadblocks and all this kind of stuff. And as I was doing it and applying and trying to deal with the new ATS systems and AI and people wanting computers to interview you, and so I did all that, and I went, oh, I know why I did all that, because now I can teach people how to get through all those
Yeah.
walls when I'm teaching them how to land a job and carve their career. Well, listen, this is personal experience. I did this in 2020 and 2021. And then a dear friend of mine, I tell everybody, when you're looking for opportunities, you have to let people know what it is you need them to help you with and what they can specifically do. And we talked before we hit record, your best friend or your mother or your granny doesn't necessarily know what you do for a living. And they might have the biggest connection of all. And that's where social media can be, oh, that's what
Mm.
Sharon does, or that's what I didn't know. I didn't, when she said she was going off to do a retreat, I didn't quite understand it,
Yeah.
right? And so I reached out to one of my friends that was a client that had become a friend. And I said, I think I'm applying for recruiting jobs because, I know the ins and outs of the candidate. So maybe I'll go back into recruiting. And then he saw an opportunity and just forwarded a link to me that led to a recruiting contract that then I was right behind the scenes. So it was like Wizard of Oz, because now I'm with the hiring managers again. I'm watching this battle happen between AI and the ATS and the human factor. And so now I can tell people what happens behind the curtains because I've been doing the recruiting as well. It's not just, hey, I
No.
once was a recruiter when I recruited everybody in Ireland. This is what I see at the labor market. Now I can actually say, no, this is what recruiters are doing today, so it's
Mm.
great.
Wow. Again, all of that experience through circumstances. And Alison, do you know what it is? I It's not even the circumstances, but it's you. And I think it comes down to realizing that about ourselves as well, is that, as they say in Ireland, you don't lie under it. That even
You
experience
didn't lick it
will,
off a stone.
you didn't lick it off the stone. It's that there was something within you as well that always wanted to keep creating and quite determined in yourself and wanting more for yourself without realizing what that
Absolutely.
more was. But again, acknowledging, which I think is really important to people, is acknowledging actually the skills I do have that I can
Hmm.
bring into this next role, or I can bring into now creating a business or a workshop or my training. Because
Absolutely.
even when you're talking, I can see why you're known as the entertainer, because you are so entertaining in your storytelling and you're very
Mm.
full of vitality and life and enthusiasm, and your eyes are bright. Everything about you kind of shines out that you are
Thanks,
there.
Sharon.
It really is. I can feel it from you. And it's like, I know if I was in your workshop or I was online, I would be motivated and encouraged by your life and your experience and what you're sharing. And that makes the best teacher.
And I remember the best teachers. You learn from the best teachers. I mean, and different personalities. Not everybody has to be this bubbly, energetic person to be a good teacher.
Mm.
Everybody has their own style. I mean, the name entertainer came when I was teaching in a hospital in DC, and the human resource director would often get a, did these occasions will introduce, give the bio, just as you give the introduction to me here. And she was just going, you're not going to just be trained, you're going to be entertained. In fact, I have been telling everybody she's our entertainer. And I went, and everybody laughing, everybody, whatever. And then going, that's what I am. Some people used to joke with, she's like Mary Poppins, because I'd bring a bag of tricks. I mean, things would come out of my bag. I mean, you've seen like Lego and teaching people how to make a paper rose. Like I remember in 2008 when the recession hit and, all the crash, I had seen a guy at our local restaurant making paper roses. And I said,
Mm.
could you teach me how to make those? Because if I can see something that I think I can do, I always want to learn. I have as much
Mm.
passion to learn as I have to teach. And he taught me how to make the paper rose. And a couple of months later, I was teaching teenagers in high school. I was teaching them get this customer service certificate before they left high school. And it was around Valentine's Day, and I pulled out a packet of napkins and I started teaching them the recession rose, I called it.
Oh,
You can't afford roses, but you can still afford to be romantic. Lads, watch this. And women, girls in the room, you don't need a man. You can make your own rose.
yeah.
And that captivated them to then learn the lesson that I was teaching them because they were in school at 7:17 in the morning, the high school start here, Sharon. Who's going to
Mm.
be awake at that time in the morning? So it got them alive and it gave them something that they could immediately do. And then I could connect it all into the things of you didn't know you could do that. Now you can do this. This is what you can do, whatever. But later that day, because I had three or four of the classes, and later that day I was walking down the corridor and there was this girl walked past me and she had the rose and a big smile and she hadn't been in my class. So one of the lads had given his rose away and I went, would you look at that? It's just
Yeah.
they all know how to make roses for the rest of their life now. If they don't remember anything else from school, they can do some roses when there's a recession, right?
Oh my God, I love that. And that's sharing a skill that you've learned with somebody else so that they have a skill. And that's what it is, passing on your knowledge and your wisdom
Absolutely.
while having fun, sharing
Oh,
that
yes,
with them as well. So
exactly.
if you were to leave advice or one piece of advice to our listeners in everything that we've talked about in all of the changes within your own life through circumstances, personally and professionally, what would your message be to people that are listening?
In this world of doom and gloom and the political environment and everything else that's going on, like the world circumstance doesn't have to be your circumstance. The world you carve, and that's why I call it carving your career because I'm teaching people in business. But it's like you have much more control over things than you think you have. And the different times I've been teaching unemployed or underemployed folks to find their next opportunity, or people who are in work who want to be promoted and teaching them soft skills. Go, manage the world you live in, right? So if the world has these circumstances, you've got to manage to it and find a way to carve your happiness in it. But the other thing is when there is brick walls put up there, a lot of people don't try and get around it. So there's actually more opportunity for you if you get up and fight than the folks who sit there and listen to the doom and gloom news. That in times when recession comes in or there's challenges in world globalization, everything that's going on, they're actually the times when there's more opportunities for those who can just take that first little step. And it's only one step. Like with me, it was okay, I'm going to attend for, in the post-pandemic times, I'm going to start attending because the managing the world I lived in was it's online now at the minute, and whether I like it or not, I'm going to have to go on. Well, do it your way. Find this is what my world is presenting to me right now. How can I bring my skills to that? How can I take the first step, the first phone call, the reaching out, telling people who can help you what it is you need in help too. Don't be afraid to ask.
You are a wonder in the world, Alison Kelly, and I am just overjoyed that I got to share this conversation with you and our listeners, that they were part of this, our tea party without the tea today here online through Zoom. But someday soon we will have the tea party. You
Yeah.
are an amazing lady, and I know there is so much more to your story. But for today, Alison, I'm grateful for your time. Thank you so much.
Sharon, thank you so, so much. It was lovely. And for my first podcast, it's over now.
You
It's
did
all good.
brilliantly. So people can connect to you on LinkedIn, Alison Kelly. What web address can you give to people if they wanted to contact you?
So my website is alisontalks.com.
Well, no, that's the most appropriate I've ever heard. Lovely.
It's branding, Sharon. It's branding, you
It
know?
sure is. I love it. Alison, thank you so much. And to everyone that has joined us today for this wonderful conversation with Alison, thank you for listening. And until next time, take care of you.